Throughout history, humans have resolved conflicts primarily through the use of weapons. Humanity has waged wars for economic, political, religious, racial, and other reasons. Many scholars suggest that the encounter between our distant ancestors and Neanderthals would have resulted in nothing but a war of annihilation. Today, we will attempt to understand the causes and consequences of this first global conflict in the history of our planet. If you are interested in learning more about scientific discoveries, hypotheses in the fields of paleontology, anthropology, and other related disciplines, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel. To promote our videos, we utilize the site's algorithm. We urge our viewers to actively engage with our content by sharing comments and liking our videos. The root cause of human destruction has always been rooted in the primitive communal systems, where outsiders who were even slightly different from the norm were often met with hostility. The locals were perceived as a threat to the simplest and safest form of tribe, and the solution was to eliminate them. If such an alien was very different from a representative of the same species, the conversation with them would be very brief. It is unlikely that Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal would have any chance for a peaceful resolution of the conflict over territory, despite the almost complete genetic similarity of these two branches of humanity. Despite the outer differences between Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, our ancestors came to Europe and the Middle East almost 70,000 years later and encountered Neanderthals, who had been living on this territory for a long time. These locals were shorter, stockier, and Neanderthals had broad shoulders, sloping chins, wide noses, and massive brow ridges. Their maximum height did not exceed 165 centimeters. The body structure of Cro-Magnon was similar to that of modern humans living today. In tropical areas, their height may exceed 180 centimeters. They have long legs. It is worth noting that the brains of infants from both species who entered the fight for new lands were completely identical, but as they aged, the differences became more pronounced. Although the total brain volume of adults did not vary significantly, it is believed that Neanderthals have a less developed cerebellum. This part of the brain is responsible for coordinating movements, memory, imagination, and most importantly, speech and social skills essential for survival. The ability of Cro-Magnon people was the ability to unite in relatively large groups to solve common problems. Neanderthal people lived in small, most likely, family groups. Although they already had many signs of a developing primitive society, their less social competitors outstripped them in this aspect of development. Judging by various archaeological finds, Neanderthals were. The concept of medicine, which took care of the elderly and the disabled, suggests that the concepts of religion and art may have emerged in the minds of these people. The simplest explanation for the disappearance of the Neanderthals is that they were destroyed by a reasonable person or group. It is possible that there was no global armed conflict between these species, but rather the more numerous and organized Cro-Magnon people gradually displaced the indigenous inhabitants of Europe to less favorable areas. This process of displacement lasted about 30 to 35,000 years, as the new inhabitants of the continent adapted to the colder climate and created more advanced tools and weapons, while the Neanderthals continued to use only primitive spears and clubs for hunting and warfare. By the end of the confrontation, the Cro-Magnons had successfully employed spear throwers, which gave them an advantage in battle. The ability of Cro-Magnon people to throw spears more accurately allowed them to hunt more effectively, leading to a successful use of the corral hunting method. The ability to assemble larger hunting parties and the different diets of Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons may have contributed to the disappearance of the latter. Analysis of the remains of Neanderthal groups indicates that they consumed different types of food, including meat, plants, fish, and seafood. The disappearance of certain foods associated with the destruction or relocation of their groups led to significant problems, such as increased mortality and decreased fertility among children, ultimately contributing to the extinction of the species. Cro-Magnon people had a similar diet regardless of the area where they lived. Their diet consisted mainly of plant-based foods, with animal components that varied depending on the region and time period. At the beginning and end of their presence in Europe and Asia, their diets were different. As time progressed, our ancestors developed more advanced cooking methods, which led to more diverse diets. It is well known that the genetic proximity of Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons allowed them to produce offspring, and they shared a common ancestor that existed between 200,000 and 1 million years ago. There is some conflict of interest in modern human genes, but this has mostly ended unhappily for one party. Those who came from Africa were simply wiped out by the Cro-Magnons, closest relatives of the Neanderthals. Excavations at sites of both these and other participants in the events indicate that Neanderthals were not easy targets. Scientists regularly find burials with traces of violent death from characteristic weapons. Bones with tooth marks are also often found. This indicates that both our ancestors and their competitors regularly ate dead enemies. In addition to these findings, some scientists propose several more theories. For example, it is believed that the domestication of dogs was an important advantage for Cro-Magnon in the struggle for survival. This symbiotic relationship allowed humans to hunt more effectively and protect themselves from threats. Neanderthal had insufficient food for survival, while Cro-Magnon prospered. The founder of this theory, American scientist Pet Shipment, also believes that at the same time Cro-Magnon emerged. Another significant characteristic is that a specific mutation of the eye sclera has become a dominant trait, acquiring a white coloration. This allows individuals to determine the direction of another person's gaze, leading to improved communication between individuals. This, in turn, has contributed to the development of socialization and increased organization. Some scientists suggest that Neanderthals may have been victims of a global epidemic that occurred 150,000 years before the appearance of Cro-Magnon people. During this time, microbes that our ancestors did not have resistance to were carried throughout the world. These microbes, which were already harmless to Cro-Magnons, may have contributed to the extinction of Neanderthals. Another group of scientists argues that Cro-Magnons were not involved in the destruction of their primary competitors, and that nature itself was responsible for this process. There is evidence to support this claim. Several large volcanic eruptions occurred during the period in areas with the highest concentration of Neanderthal populations. This led to a decrease in temperature and changes in atmospheric water composition. Many species of animals that served as the main source of food for Neanderthals died out, leading to starvation and the extinction of the population. The exact cause of the disappearance of the Neanderthals is unknown, but it is likely that competition with other species occupying similar ecological niches played a significant role. In other circumstances, the Neanderthals may have had a better chance of survival, and human society may have developed differently. However, we will never know for sure. We would like to thank our viewers for their interest in our content. If you are interested in learning more about this topic, please continue to support our channel. We would like to draw your attention to previous materials on our channel, as they contain a wealth of information about the history of life and its development.